Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Monmouth County. My name is Allison Mitchell and my pronouns are she and her. I serve as chair of the membership committee with membership coordinator Lisa Arcolio and volunteer on the worship committee. We were in here doing all the decorating and in family ministry. In fact, today I will leave after generosity to join the 5th and 7th graders for popcorn theology. Yes, we do have popcorn. Today we will be seeing a portion of Dolphin Tale to consider ableism and advocacy for those with mobility challenges. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. Our mission is to create community, transform ourselves, and transform the world. This morning, we welcome a guest speaker, Reverend Mary Tiebout, and our guest pianist, Brian Gilmore, and you'll hear more about both of them when our Reverend Craig Rubano introduces them in a few minutes. I draw your attention to the backside of your orders of service for announcements and service information for next week. For those on the live stream and video viewers, the order of service link is available to you in the YouTube service description box. The mitten tree is wrapping up today. Today is the last day to choose a paper mitten from the tree in the community room to give gifts or gift cards to Family Promise. Their gifts are being picked up tomorrow morning. Gifts and gift cards for the Monmouth County SPCA should be brought in by next Sunday, 12/17. Gift cards can be purchased from UUCMC's gift card table today, located next to the mitten tree. Thanks to all for your generosity, bringing more joy to lots of people and animals this Christmas. And Betsy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Betsy Sunada. I serve this congregation as the president of your Board of Governance. Oh my goodness. Good morning. And I'm here today to put out a plea. We are working on, believe it or not, already starting to work on wrapping up this year's budget. Not the calendar year, but the congregational year, starting to work on the next one. And we have a gap this year. And we are reaching out to all of you to encourage you to consider pitching in a little bit more to your pledge or making an outright donation to help us fill this gap so that the congregation can continue to meet its goals and do the planned things that we would like to accomplish this year. So if you can, please consider being generous and helping us close the gap this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. After the service, coffee will be served in the community room, and people of all ages are welcome to visit with one another. If you are new to us, please do visit our website, UUCMC.org, where you can sign up to get all the latest news of the congregation by email. We look forward to getting to know you better. Please put your devices on silent as we enter into worship together. Welcome again to this place of love and hope.
And I'm the Reverend Dr. Craig Rubano, and I am so pleased you have chosen to be with us this morning, for we have two very special guests. First, we welcome back pianist and lecturer in applied music at Ocean County College, Brian Gilmore. It is always a treat when he joins us for worship services, and this morning is no exception as he shares music from Franz Schubert and Edvard Grieg. And it's not just because the Reverend Mary Tiebout is a fellow graduate of Princeton Theological Seminary that I'm excited to welcome her this morning. Reverend Mary has served as a part-time minister for UU congregations in New Jersey and beyond since 1993, most recently at our sibling congregation in Newton. Other recent work includes calligraphy. She's a gifted artist. being a nurse for foals in the ICU of an equine hospital, and helping to edit books. She's taking a break from ministry in order to take care of her 90-year-old dad at his home in Princeton. For the entire time I have been in ministerial training, Mary has been a member of the UU Princeton congregation and part of the New Jersey Metro District's UU Ministers Cluster. So she has mentored my own path to ministry and participated in my ordination 5 years ago. She was also present at my installation as your settled minister earlier this year in May. I count her as a personal friend, for which I am deeply grateful. Mary, thank you for being with us and sharing your voice from our pulpit. And now, using the original definition of worship as a shaping concern for all that is of worth, I turn things over to Brian, Reverend Mary, and our worship associates, Liz and Allison.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm glad it's not raining yet. For this call to worship, I would like to tell a story that was told to me by a wonderful storyteller named Gioia Timpanelli. It was winter, and it was very cold, and the family was inside trying to stay warm. The children asked the parents, "How can we help?" And the parents said, "If you could go out and collect some windfalls, we could use those in the fire." Now, some people might think that windfalls are surprise bunches of money that might happen to come in the mail, but windfalls were what people hoped that they would come down in a storm, such as what we might get later, and they would use these sticks, little twigs, small branches, to put in the fire to keep them warm. So the children went out, and there was snow on the ground, and they were picking up some sticks, and there was one that looked like a great one to bring in, but it was in the ground and it was stuck. So they had to start digging. And oh, it was so cold, the snow, if you don't have mittens and you're out there and your hands get so cold. But they were digging together, and they finally moved something, and they were scratching away, and there was a box. There was a wooden box, a beautiful small box. And they had to dig. Oh, their hands were so cold, and they had to dig and dig. And they finally got this box out of the cold ground. And they shook the box. There was no sound. But together, the children opened the lid of the box. We gather on this fourth day of Hanukkah, the second Sunday in Advent, and just 11 days from the winter solstice. May our hearts be fed by the beauty we make by being here, sharing our gifts together. And may this day bring another chance for us to find the invisible surprise, the mysterious gift that will help us warm the great heart of the world. You're all right?
Our chalice lighting this words this morning are from Wayne Arnason. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. And now we'll sing our children out to go now in peace. Oops. Oh. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Allison. I forgot to call Lisa Loeb. I apologize. Thank you. And again, I apologize, Lisa. Thank you, Brian. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. We're going to do hymn 226. Please stand as you're able, and Brian will play it through once. First.
This'll work better. Okay. So, I brought today a book. The title of the book is The Refugees in Evergreen Village, and it was written by, it says A.B. Coolidge, and I found out the author's name is Alice B. Coolidge. This book, it says inside, written in pencil, Patty Peck, from Aunt Lily, Christmas, 1928. Patty Peck was my mother, and at Christmas in 1928, she was 4. And she got an 85-page book that she probably wasn't quite ready to read yet. But this is among the books that we have. This book was published in 1918. It was the end of World War I, and also there was a terrible, terrible pandemic. Inside the book, it says, there's a sticker that says, the net proceeds of the sale of these books will be sent direct to Paris for the benefit of the little refugee children of France. These books can be purchased at the Old Corner Bookstore, Bromfield Street, Boston. And then there's a dedication page from the author. I dedicate this book to the little American boys and girls who, by purchasing it, help the refugee children across the seas. So I'm going to tell you briefly the story that's in this book, and I made some large copies of some of the drawings. So the rabbit family, the bunny rabbit family, was in their house. Father Rabbit was working on a little project. Mother was knitting with wooden needles. Some of the kids were weaving baskets from grasses that were found near the river, and some of the other kids were trying to build a sled with a box on it that they could take into the woods and use to gather pine cones, because inside the pine cones it's very delicious, and then they would bring those back to the house. They were living in a house that was one of the houses left when the loggers, who had been there a long time ago, they left a few houses, and some of the lucky rabbits got to live in these houses. Father Rabbit, while he was doing his work, asked Mother Rabbit, has the news pigeon been ill? We haven't heard from him in a long time. And before Mother Rabbit could even respond, there was a sound outside, a very strange sound. And Father Rabbit said, what was that? And Mother Rabbit said, do you think that might have been a D-O-G? I heard somebody say, what's that? A dog? But she spelled it because she didn't even want to say the word. Father Rabbit said, I'm afraid so. But it didn't really sound like a dog. It sounded kind of sick. But I'll take a look. So he opens the window and leans outside and says, hello, stranger, what are you doing here? How did you get past the guards? And the rabbit said, I'm injured. Mother Rabbit said, could you close the window? It's getting cold in here. So Father Rabbit, even though he was a little bit afraid because he didn't really know what this was happening with this dog, he went outside and he talked to the dog, and the dog moaned and pointed to his ankle. And Father Rabbit said, "Oh, I understand." And the dog said, "May I come in? I would like to spend the night if I could." And Father Rabbit said, "Do you promise that you won't hurt anybody?" And the dog put his paw on his heart and said, "I promise." So Father Rabbit called to Tom and said, "Get the sled that you were working on." And they brought the sled out and they put this dog on the sled and took him inside. And Mother Rabbit sees that the dog is very ill, so she asks for some tea, some good herbal tea, and some aromatic scents that might help. And the dog asked if he could stay overnight. And they said, "Okay, but you have to stay over there in this bed." And the dog explained, "I was riding in a vehicle. I was sick, but then I was in this vehicle, and I fell out, and I broke my paw." So that's what happened. So I don't know if you can see this well, but here is when the dog arrived on the front step. There it is. And then here we are. The next day, when the dog gets to sleep in the little bed that they had put together for Tom while Tom was recovering from an injury. And that conversation happened this way. They asked, "Well, what kind of dog are you?" And the dog said, "I'm a French toy poodle. I am young and came with my master from France." And Father Rabbit said, "Well, you may spend the night on this bed that Tom used when he was wounded." And the dog said, "Wounded? How did that happen? Are they fighting here?" And Father Rabbit said, "Not now." And the poodle said, "Oh, they fought forever in my beautiful home. Such terrible scenes, yet such courage." Mother Rabbit wished the poodle good night and went to the next room where little Anne was crying. "What's the matter?" Mother Rabbit said. And Anne said, "Oh, his paw is so sore. I heard him cry when you touched it." And Mother Rabbit said, "Anne, we will make his paw well again." So the next day they had a visit from Dr. Red Squirrel, who was a doctor, and Dr. Gray Squirrel, who was a minister. And Dr. Gray Squirrel said, "I worry about the safety of the young squirrels and the other young animals that are around, but we will have to protect ourselves, but not be guided by our fears. And we want to take care of this rabbit." So in the evening, they had supper together and they talked, and then the next day, the news pigeon came crying and said, "We have terrible news. A big machine has come and has plowed up the field. And all the little animals in the field, the mice and all the tiny animals, their homes have been destroyed. Many of them are hurt, and we need help." Because Mr. Poodle had been in Paris when so many people had lost their homes had been destroyed, he learned how you organize a way to help. So here's Mr. Poodle standing there with all the field mice being organized, that they are volunteering. They also had the Red Cross doves helping out. And with the sled that they had made, the carrier, they started bringing in the wounded animals into their little evergreen village. And there were many, many, and they helped, and they went for weeks. They took care of them, fed them. Everybody worked together, and it was all because Mr. Poodle organized and oversaw the whole thing. Well, toward the end of the summer was harvest time, which was a great time, and they started bringing in wonderful things. There's corn, there's potatoes, maybe some turnips, sweet potatoes, cabbage, all sorts of things that came in and would be stored up for the next year. And then finally, they had a wonderful party. Mr. Poodle was going to go back to being with his owner. They had found him, and they said goodbye. They were so grateful. And it was all because of courage, of letting him, of welcoming him to their house, to their village, their community, so he could use his skill and turn his love and gratitude into a gift for all the animals. And now we will sing the children out with Go Now in Peace.
Every week in this congregation, we are provided with an opportunity to practice generosity. This is your invitation to contribute to the well-being of our congregation and to neighbors through the good works of organizations which receive half of the monies collected each month. Our Share of the Plate recipient for December is Lunch Break, Family Promise, whose life skills program offers free help with taxes, GED preparation, computer skills, tutoring for all ages, ESL, that's English as a second language, and credit and financial counseling. Judy Stevens and Peter Bellincampi currently volunteer at Lunch Break. The Lunch Break facility, located on Dr. Parker's Boulevard, is currently in the process of construction that will double its size, but in December, the food pantry will move back in. Later, Clara's Closet and Life Skills. There will be shower and laundry facilities for unhoused folks, also a counseling room, meeting rooms, and lounge area, plus an updated kitchen. The number of meals prepared daily has increased 20% per year for the past 4 years. If you haven't signed up to purchase gifts from the Mitten Tree, you can still buy a gift card at our gift card table today. For those of you present here in the meeting house, the plates will be passed by the ushers. You may also join this time of generosity via text, sending your offering by mail, or charge your contribution online with a memo designating the amount to Lunch Break/Family Promise. Please give generously.
At 3 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon, I mailed artwork for a solstice celebration program and for the cover of a small book to my dear friend Mary Ann in Vermont. I was happy and relieved, and as always, hoping that my work would deserve the praise and thanks that Mary Ann so generously gives. The solstice celebration, called Night Fires, began in 1981, and I was involved from the beginning, backstage, on stage, creating the program. I knew Mary Ann because she directed shows for the Middlebury Community Players, but I actually first met her through her parents, who frequently dined at a lovely inn where I worked as a waitress. They knew that I did calligraphy and asked me to create their greeting card, an Inuit song about overcoming fears and seeing the light that fills the world. Then Mary Ann asked if I would write out a few poems by Robert Frost as a gift to her parents. I love Robert Frost and thought about some of his nice short poems, such as, "Forgive, O Lord, my little jokes on thee, and I will forgive thy great big one on me." But the poems on Mary Ann's list weren't short poems. One was The Death of the Hired Man, but I loved every word of it. Years later, when Mary Ann started creating a new version of a great old story, which she would print out and send to friends at this time of year, I would do the lettering for the cover, and then a little drawing of jewelweed or a duck, a special kind of duck. Or like last year, a pomegranate for the front cover and a pomegranate with seeds falling out for the last page. I'd get these humble requests and whisper to the miles between us, "Mary Ann, you know I can't draw." This summer, Mary Ann asked me to copy a symbol from the Adinkra system of symbols from the Guiaman people of Africa and make it about 5 inches square on red paper. She wanted to give it to new neighbors as a wedding present. This is what the symbol looks like. This was a first draft that I did. Over the years, I've made large signs for outdoor performances, and for this autumn's storytelling event, Marrowbone, Mary Ann asked if I would write out some words on a large banner that would be hung along the path through the woods. The quote is from a poem by Galway Connell. "Love is very much like courage. Perhaps it is courage, and even perhaps only courage." Just at that time, I read the chapter in a book by one of my great teachers, Martine Prechtel, The Wild Rose, Stories of My Horses. It's the title of the book. He describes a gelding, a Spanish barb horse, who, with several others, was sold to a man in Iowa and then brought and trailered back to New Mexico by Martine. Martine describes Rewa, whose name in the Keres language means swift. He was really solid. His heart was strong and full of grief. The beautiful 4 by 6 foot cloth arrived in the mail. I started to figure out the letter size and the spacing with the cloth on the dining room table at my dad's house and with my dog Dusty on the floor nearby. My dad had just turned 98 and Dusty at 15 plus was about the same age in dog years. Pretty great for a black lab who had heartworm disease when I adopted him from the SPCA when he was 6. Dusty had lots of bumps on him, and he developed a cyst on his left front leg that had grown rapidly and was too large, the vet said, to remove. That was last January. Thinking then that he only had a few weeks to live, when his food ran out, I bought a 7-pound bag of food. Then I bought the 20-pound bag. And by May, we were back up to the 35-pound bag. But as August steamed along, I knew we were getting near the end. In an email to Marianne about the large sign, I said, "Dusty is in his last days." And then I asked about Marianne's old Bernese mountain dog, Zola. She said that their beautiful Zola, for whom they had dug a grave the November before, just in case, would be euthanized the following Thursday. "She's ready," Marianne said. I looked at Dusty and said, "You might be ready, but I'm not." A week later, the day came. The bleeding from the cyst wouldn't stop. I called the veterinary hospital and took Dusty the next morning. While the young vet explained the procedure, I nodded, envisioning the green cloth and repeating to my breaking heart, "Love is very much like courage. Perhaps it is courage, and even perhaps only courage." You might now be thinking about beloved dogs or other family members, friends for whom you are grieving and have grieved. Can you reach for the love inside that grief and feel, when you breathe, the courage of that love-held grief? From the earliest solstice celebrations that Marianne created, the theme has been about embracing the darkness at this time of year before the Earth's North Pole tilts back toward the sun, lengthening our daylight hours. She would include poems like Rilke's beautiful poem, "You darkness that I come from, I love you more than all the stars." Maura Simon's poem, "This darkness is a rope, not a prison. Hand over hand, I haul myself in. I touch your face, I blossom." Wendell Berry's poem, "To go in the dark with the light is to know the light. Go dark." At winter solstice celebrations around the world, the story of Demeter's determined efforts to retrieve her daughter Persephone from the grasp of Hades, lord of the underworld, is often told. Hades has given Persephone a few pomegranate seeds to eat. She is held below. I have a pomegranate here. She is held below until Demeter, her mother, works out a deal that Persephone would begin her walk up from the underworld at the time of the winter solstice, bringing spring, spending half of the year in the light. This is the story that Marianne retold for her little book last year, Pomegranate Girl. It is also the story that was woven by Anne Batchelder into her book, published in October, Craving Spring. Anne is married to my cousin Henry, and the book is about what Anne had to learn in order to stay strong while walking, sometimes above ground and sometimes through hell, with their daughter, Olivia, who was trying to overcome an opioid addiction. It is a beautifully told, heart-gripping story about love, about courage. Jane Hirshfield, in her poem, The Weighing, says, "The world asks of us only the strength we have, and we give it. And then it asks more, and we give it." I met my husband Nato when we were students at Princeton Seminary. With two parents who were ministers, he was terrified of preaching, as I was the first time I had to give a sermon in class. But Nato actually found a way to get around doing a sermon in his class. He's also, by the way, afraid of spiders and the sight of blood. When our son Eli was 3, he walked into a swing that another child was on while the babysitter wasn't watching. Eli got a cut on his forehead. Nato was working as a rural carrier for the Hopewell Post Office. Being right nearby, he got the call and went to pick Eli up and take him to the doctor. Then I got a call. While standing in the waiting room, holding Eli, Nato fainted and was on the floor, passed out, with Eli crying and being held so tightly, the staff couldn't get him out of Nato's arms. I was reminded of this moment 2 weeks ago when Nato told me about his day. While delivering mail, he saw a cyclist stopped near a field taking pictures. Then the cyclist got on his bike with his helmet hanging from the handlebar. He zoomed by, heading down this steep hill, and Nato thought, he's going too fast to make that sharp curve ahead. And seconds later, Nato saw the young man lying on the road. He didn't make the curve. Nato parked his truck and went to help. The man's head was bleeding. Nato told him not to move and called 911, which he'd never had to do before. The local ambulance service, being all volunteer, took 20 minutes to arrive. The man, who was Asian, spoke very little English, but asked Nato to call his wife, who was apparently furious that something like this had happened. Plus, she was shopping and didn't know how to get there, she said. The police arrived right away, then the ambulance, and then a helicopter. When Nato told me about this, I reminded him of what happened when he fainted with Eli years ago and said, here you were, just a mile from where that happened with Eli, and you were able to help this guy. Nato said that he sort of hoped somebody else would stop by to help, but he was the only one, so he had to. He saved this man's life. He did what he could never have imagined doing. He allowed courage to overcome his fear. He was helping another person, another being. It's what the heart always wants to do. There are courageous people in our world. We hear a lot these days about Cassidy Hutchinson, Liz Cheney, and the people of Gaza and Israel, the people at the borders, the people of Ukraine, people who live where gun violence has shattered lives again. I think about how humanity often shows its best side in responding to humanity's worst side, with these most cruel, selfish, violent, and inhumane actions. We are at times the darkness, and yet we are called to carry the light. I wanted to learn more about Alice B. Coolidge, who wrote the stories about the animals in Evergreen Village, and found that her sister-in-law, Ellen Coolidge, had worked with Aunt Lily, my mother's Aunt Lily. Lily was born in Gloversville, New York, went to Simmons College, worked in Boston, and then at the Henry Street Settlement in New York. She eventually became director of international settlements. She traveled to the Bremen neighborhood house in Bremen, Germany, where she helped train psychologists who were not Nazi sympathizers to be able to talk about their experiences during the war in order for them to be able to help fellow citizens who were traumatized by the war, help them talk about their experiences. That program, I discovered, was sponsored by the Unitarian Service Committee. What I didn't know about Aunt Lily or my grandfather, Edwin Peck, was that their parents were both of Jewish ancestry. I don't know if she knew, if my grandfather or my mother knew. We found out by way of ancestry a couple years ago. It was never spoken. So in 1985, during seminary, when I spent 3 weeks in Israel, Palestine, I didn't know this when I saw Palestinian homes and ancient olive trees bulldozed, the little boy behind the wire fence in Gaza, and thought, after what the Jewish people have been through, how can they turn around and do this? Then I went to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial, and saw the glass case with the shoes of the little children who had died. I cried. I had to run outside, and I thought, there it is. That terrifying thing we're all running away from and causing by our fear to happen again and again to someone else. It's been going on for thousands of years, and it's happened in America too. How do we stop it? Like the creatures of Evergreen Village, we drum up our courage, create a stronger community, and become our bravest, most magnificent selves, welcoming strangers, making peace, and saving as many lives as we can. One other thing about Aunt Lily. My mom loved to tell a story about Aunt Lily on a flight, when she was on a flight to Europe. The flight attendant comes by with a plate of cookies and offers them to Lily and the person traveling with her. The friend declines, but Lily reaches toward the plate and says, "You have to take the cookies when they're passed." Our joys, the beauty we see, and most especially the beauty we make in the world, feed our hearts and the great heart of the world. You look out the window and see a cardinal, or listen to a beautiful piano sonata, taste something sweet and good, or tend to the flowers on your table, and this can get you through the next difficult thing. In a birthday note sent this week, my daughter Johanna wrote, "Maybe it's something about the dark and cold that makes it easier to see how warmly and brightly the lights are burning in the people we love." Amen. For our time of meditation, these words from James Baldwin, who wrote in his prose essay poem, Nothing Personal. One discovers the light in darkness. That is what darkness is for. But everything in our lives depends on how we bear the light. It is necessary while in darkness to know that there is a light somewhere, to know that in oneself, waiting to be found, there is a light. What the light reveals is danger. What it demands is faith. May we take a moment in silence to breathe deeply, to feel in our hearts those places that need more light to come in, or that seek the strength to love, to acknowledge those places in us that long to help make a world better now for us and for those to follow. We want to have faith in humanity, but we see many dangers, and we want to face danger with courage. Let's breathe deeply into the silence. In this same poem, James Baldwin writes, "It is a mighty heritage. It is the human heritage, and it's all there is to trust. And I learned this through descending, as it were, into the eyes of my father and my mother. I wondered when I was little how they bore it, for I knew that they had much to bear. It had not yet occurred to me that I also would have much to bear, but they knew it, and the unimaginable rigors of their journey helped them prepare me for mine. This is why one must say yes to life and embrace it wherever it is found. And it is found in terrible places. Nevertheless, there it is, and the Father can say, 'Yes, Lord,' and the child can learn that most difficult of words. Amen." Please rise as you are able, and we will sing together our closing hymn, number 131, "Love Will Guide Us." In these times of darkness, may love's light shine from our hearts. May the great kind-hearted mystery teach us and all of humanity to live courageously, to love fiercely, to choose justice and peace, And may we always be grateful, hopeful, helpful, and bold. Amen. Please remain seated while Brian, whose music was just such a blessing today, will play our postlude. Thank you.